Chat. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to another Healthy Gamer Ooh, it's kind of dark in here. Stream, how y'all doing today? Chat? I know we weren't supposed to stream today, but some circumstances changed. It has been a little while. Hope y'all are doing... I got a haircut a while ago, but thanks for noticing. Raspberry 314 is feeling terrible. I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, so we just popped on a little bit. Just doing a little bit of pop it. You know how it is. Welcome to another Healthy Gamer GG stream. My name is Alo Kanoja. Just a reminder that although I'm a psychiatrist, nothing we discuss on stream today is intended to be taken as medical advice. So if y'all have questions, concerns, please go see a licensed professional. Everything we're going to discuss today is intended to be for educational purposes and entertainment only, okay? So, nothing is medical. Seriously, like that's not just a disclaimer. It's like really like the process of diagnosing and treating medical conditions is not what we do on stream. So we are going to talk about a couple of mental health things today, but a quick announcement. So we are actually going to go to the Game Developers Conference in California. So I'm going to be catching a flight today, which is part of the reason why we didn't think that we would be able to stream. So, but it turns out that I've got a couple hours and GDC was happy to accommodate. So we're going to be talking at GDC conference and Unity. So keep an eye out for that. That's what we're going to be doing. And we're going to not be streaming on Friday as a result because we'll be out there. So I hope to see some of y'all there if y'all are there. And yeah, so that'll be fun. We're going to be talking a little bit about toxicity and promoting good behavior within video games. So the cool thing about being like a part of HG and Healthy Gamer and stuff like that is like we try to help you, right? Like the audience. And it's really cool because we get a lot of, questions and requests from game developers to like help us, like people who are interested in making less toxic communities will reach out to us. People who are like interested in making like video games a tool for like good and positivity and building good communities and things like that. So we'll kind of talk with them, sometimes help them out a little bit. So that's cool. So hopefully like we'll I have a lot of thoughts about, so if you like, anyway, I don't want to spoil things, but I have a lot of thoughts about how to build positive communities, which y'all have taught us a lot about. So thank you very much for being such an awesome, positive community, those of you that are out there. So we're going to be doing that. And then we still have group coaching spots available. So if y'all are interested in getting together with a cohort of people to better understand yourself, better understand how to approach life, how to find purpose, how to work on your issues, things like that, how to get more motivated, then group coaching is a great opportunity for that. I think one of the advantages of group coaching is that it's a little bit more skills oriented. So you're going to learn tools for introspection and inquiry for yourself and other people. And hopefully your group members will get to know you pretty well. And as a result, they'll be able to hold your feet to the fire. And there's an accountability element to it that we sometimes don't see in personal coaching. So if that's kind of interesting to you, then by all means sign up. Okay? So today, we're going to do a couple of posts. Let me just show y'all what we've got on the docket for today. And then y'all can tell me which one we want to do first, okay? All right. So one is, I feel like I won't be employable when I graduate. 2 is, I'm nearly 30 and unable to find purpose and connection. I'm starting to consider hitting Alt F4. And 3 is, the image of the person I thought I am got destroyed and now I feel dead inside. Right? So different things. So let's see if we can... let's see if we can find, let me see if I can figure out how to do this. Poll, chat. Okay, last one, hold on. Dr. K is gonna try to poll himself. Can I do it, chat? Can I do it, manage poll? Here we go. Wait, what? New poll. Okay. Which topic? Number 1 is I'm unemployable. Number 2 is image of myself. Oh, that was number 3, right? Number 2 is considering Alt F4ing. And then number 3 is lost the image of self. Let's see. Okay, hype train incoming. Let's do it. Okay. 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 So many different things. All right, so it looks like people are leaning. Oh, wow, we've got kind of an even split. So let me, wow, super even split. Are you guys trying to even split it? Is that what's going on? Lost image of self is taking the lead. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do all three, chat. Okay, so stay with yourself. Okay, so we'll start with number 3. We're going to do number 1 next, and then we're going to end with number 2. Because that way I think number 2 has a good meditation that goes with it. Let me make sure I have that right. No, actually, number 1 has the meditation with it. All right, so we'll do meditation early today. Does that work for y'all? Does that work? Okay, so we're going to do meditation early, okay? So there's a meditation for losing the image of yourself, all right? So we're going to do that. Okay. So let's find this. Okay. Okay, chat. Okay, we're getting there. Dr. K is figuring it out. There we go. Okay, let's get started. Update. Okay, the image of the person I thought I am got destroyed, and now I feel dead inside. Hi, the story is long, but maybe it is not all needed to give you the answer, so I'll keep it short. I'm over 30 now. I was, or I thought I am, the person I know and like for over 20 years, and then something happened. It destroyed the image I had of myself. I was not sure who I am at this moment. I didn't know what to do, and I think I slowly was going closer to do what the person I knew before would do. And then something happened again that stabbed that image again. I feel dead inside, I think. I don't feel it every day, though. I even thought I'm okay. I thought I'm okay to this point in that I was thinking about being a recovery coach because I went through some stuff and I'm okay now. Today I started thinking that what I would say if I told Dr. K all my story. I got to some point, I started thinking about it, and I realized I'm not okay. How can I help someone if I'm not okay? I miss the person if I was, and if I'm not that person, I feel dead inside because it is like that person I thought I am is dead. I'm scared to try to be me I knew again because I tried twice and all it did was to hurt me again. I feel like I don't know if the person I thought I was even real. I don't know who I am now. Nothing matters, but I don't want to kill myself because I don't even know who is that myself. Life goes on and I pretend even to be myself that everything is okay until the moment like this happens when I realize how I feel. What do you think about it? What would you suggest? For first-time people, welcome. So I know that this post can sound a little bit confusing, but let's start by trying to understand a little bit about what this person is experiencing. So oftentimes, what can be challenging for us is that we have a sense of who we are. And this sense of self kind of hopefully develops like early on during adolescence or teenage years. Then we for many of us, we kind of feel pretty good when we're 20. And then our 20s are actually characterized by some sense of like loss or some sense of losing sight of who you are, some sense of the world kind of kicking in and sort of like, because things when you're a teenager can be sort of bright and fun. And then when your 20s sort of roll in, you can sort of lose sight of that bright, hopeful person you used to be. And then what ends up happening is we sort of try to hold on to that person, right? So like that person used to be like excited to do things. They used to be excited about the future. The world was filled with opportunity. And so then what happens is we start to like, things can happen if we kind of pay attention to this post. It sounds like this person had a couple of setbacks. And then when we have setbacks, we sort of lose sight of our positive self. And then we're kind of left with this vacuum of like not being internally motivated because like that person feels like they're gone and all of my motivation came from that person. And then we run into a separate problem, which is that like once we lose track of kind of our inner self, right, that inner kind of guiding force, then what we try to do is we try to figure out, okay, how am I supposed to navigate now? Like if I don't know kind of who I am or where I am or what I should be moving towards, how do I figure out like where to go if I don't feel naturally excited about anything? And then what we do is we cling to our image of former self. Well, that person back when they were 20 years old would have done this. That person would have done this, and that person would have done this. So we try to like hold on to the memory of who we were. The funny thing is that as we hold on to the memory of who we were, it kind of starts to feel like life is very like artificial because there's no actual internal drive anymore, right? It's sort of like, I want y'all to just kind of think about a really simple analogy, which is, let's say that I'm really, really craving to eat a particular kind of food. And I remember that craving is super, super strong, and I really, really want to eat that food. And then as I start to eat it, I start to get satisfied. And then the craving kind of goes down. And then my desire to eat doesn't really isn't there anymore, right? Because in this situation, it's been satisfied. But then what sort of happens is that if I continue holding on to that relic of what I wanted before, and I think to myself, oh, like this food made me happy before, so let me eat it again, let me eat it again, let me eat it again. It's not going to bring you the same kind of joy. So what tends to happen is sometimes when we lose sight of ourselves, we try to hold on to the echoes of who we used to be. And in holding on to the person that we used to be, we actually end up getting ourselves stuck, right? Because that's not who we are anymore. And yet we're kind of stuck between this rock and a hard place because I don't really know who I am. So how do I move forward? Because that internal voice isn't there anymore. But the best I've got, right? Because that's like the best you've got is like the memory of who you used to be. And so then you start to chase after that kind of thing. And yet, like, even if you try to chase after it, that internal motivation isn't there. So you can start to chase after it, but your actual productivity, your actual enjoyment, your actual ability to tolerate difficult circumstances without that internal drive, all of that becomes more difficult. And so then what happens is even if we're chasing after the echo of who we used to be, our productivity, our performance, our yield from our efforts tends to be very, very low. And that in turn causes us to lose more motivation, right? Because now I'm like trying and I'm trying. I tried this. It's not working. It's not where I want to be. It's not where I thought I would be. It's not where I wish I was. And then we sort of get like kind of like lost, and then we kind of feel stuck and we don't really feel like doing anything. So how do we sort of get out of this situation of kind of feeling dead inside? And furthermore, once I feel dead inside, choosing what to do based on the echo of who I used to be, right? Because like I remember what I used to like, so maybe I'll just kind of try to do that again because that seemed to work at some point, right? So the real solution to this is to discover who you are now. And that's kind of easier said than done, but we'll kind of walk you through how to do that. Because the problem here is that once you lose sight of your internal voice, and we'll talk a little bit about what that is and where that comes from, the best that we have is intellect to guide us. The problem is that intellect is not like something that gives you fulfillment, right? Intellect can analyze, but it can't provide enjoyment. Our mind may be able to give us like some amount of pleasure through dopamine, but it can't provide us with like life satisfaction. So then what starts to happen is we start to live a very surface level life. And the more we drown ourselves in a surface level life, the further we get away from our kind of deeper self, our true self, whatever that part of ourself that brings fulfillment. And then we kind of get stuck in this situation where we're not really sure what to do. We don't have an internal compass, but all we know is which way the compass used to be pointing. So we go in that direction and hope that things will work out. So how can we understand how to overcome this situation? Okay, let's break it down. So, okay, let's take a look at this. So if you are dead inside, hold on, tech support. Okay, good. All right. So let's map out this problem. So if you feel dead inside. So let's first understand what that means, dead inside. How does someone be dead on the inside? Okay, so there's some psychiatric issues. So for example, there's something called the Cotard delusion, which, hopefully this person doesn't have, and we have really no way of knowing. That doesn't sound like it. So the Cotard delusion, just interesting factoid. So the Cotard delusion is a particular kind of delusional syndrome where you believe a part of your body or organ is like dead. So I'll feel like, oh, like my stomach is actually dead, or like my arm is dead. Like it's like dead flesh. It's kind of weird. It's sort of a misinterpretation by your brain of proprioception. Exceedingly rare. So this is like misinterpretation of like internal bodily signals, okay? So when we say dead inside, the first thing to understand, there is a little bit of a differential diagnosis here. We're not diagnosing anything, by the way. But so sometimes there are like conditions that will make you feel like literally dead inside. But most of the time, what we sort of mean is that there's sort of this inner self that we lose track of. So if you think about like what comes from inside, so a lot of like motivation, desire, excitement, these are the kinds of things that come from the inside, okay? And when we kind of talk a little bit about inside, let's try to think a little bit about what are the different realms of self, okay? So at our core, if you ask the yogis, there's something called Turiya. And so Turiya is our innermost being. And Turiya has some of these qualities of, it's also kind of, Turiya technically in Sanskrit means fourth state or other state. So this is kind of a state of consciousness that is beyond the other states of consciousness. So what they sort of meant is that, we've got Turiya over here, and then we've got sort of this area over here where purpose, fulfillment, inspiration comes from like a deeper part of our mind. And then above that, we have sort of our surface level mind. And in the surface level mind, we get things like dopaminergic stuff, pleasure, enjoyment, emotions, right? Sadness, thoughts. So this is kind of our surface level of mind. So when people say, I feel dead in the inside, what I oftentimes find that these people are experiencing is they're stuck up here in this area of mind. So their experience of life is highly mental, as opposed to like below the mind is like inspiration, fulfillment. You can't really like logic your way to being fulfilled, right? Like you can't just like logic your way to like being motivated. You can't kind of think your way to being motivated. Sure, you can do mental work that will help you with your motivation, sure. But generally speaking, they're kind of stuck on this surface mental level. So their lives are kind of, dictated by dopamine, the chasing of dopamine, so that we can get away from the other negative thoughts. Right? So at this surface level of mind, they're doing their level best to be at this end instead of this end. So this is like the positive end. This is the negative end. But the whole point is that they stay over here and they lose track of the inner self. Okay? And so then what happens is once we lose track of the inner self, and this sort of happens as we kind of develop, right? So as we're kids, we're closer to these parts and theoretically even have some access to Turiya. So this is a state that can be attained from sort of advanced meditation and things like that. So then what happens is we lose track. So like our inner desire, like our inner drives come from a deeper level of mind, right? So like maybe in your teenage years, you were excited about stuff and you were like, oh, it'd be cool to do this or cool to do this. Now with the pandemic, if you're a teenager now, that can actually be really challenging because it's hard to be excited. And then when you lose track of your drives, then what happens is you hold on to the memory of your drives. And then you try to get motivated towards old drives. And this sort of is a problem because what this actually ends up doing is making you stuck. Because you're a different person now, right? Like you're not the same person you were 10 years ago. You've grown, you've changed, you've maybe become more despairing. Like growth doesn't necessarily have to be positive in all of its emotional valence, right? So you're like a different person. And if you just try to repeat the old thing over and over again, what that's going to do is end up making you stuck. So instead, what we've got to do is if we've gotten stuck up here, right, and we've sort of lost track of our inner voice, what we need to do is essentially learn how to move further down this way, right? So we need to move beyond the mind, sort of to the level of drive, and then ideally even find some experience of Turiya. And if we can do that, then like the cool thing is we'll find that natural motivation again, okay? So the main thing here, the tricky thing is like, how do we lose track of this? And I think what we've learned how to do, or what we've forgotten how to do as a society, is listen to ourselves. So the core thing that we have to do to get down here is listen to ourselves. Now, let's think a little bit about why we have forgotten as a society to listen to ourselves. The first is that sometimes down here we have unpleasant stuff. So when we have unpleasant stuff down here, what does the mind want to do? It wants to go back up here. And now the problem nowadays is that going back up here has become way too easy. So it used to be that like the amount of like dopamine you could get 500 years ago was like limited, right? So like, let's say I'm a farmer in like Europe. And it turns out that like I can only distract myself kind of so much. Like maybe I was the village drunk. So like that's a good example of people who were like really, really, good at distracting themselves. But there just wasn't that much fun stuff to do. There may be like a festival, or you may be able to like play a sport or something like that. But generally speaking, like you couldn't automatically return to a positive dopaminergic state of mind. Whereas nowadays with all of our technology, it becomes really, really easy to forget to listen to yourself, right? So like think about it this way. If I'm like playing a video game for 8 hours, think about all of the internal signals that I'm suppressing when I do that, right? When I binge watch a TV show or spend hours just like binge watching, like chain watching crap on social media, or switch from YouTube to Reddit and then do some Instagram and then do a little bit of TikTok and like doom scrolling, right? Like we can just doom scroll for hours. And the other thing that happens when we doom scroll is we're also moving over here from the negative to the positive. The funny thing is that even doom scrolling can sometimes create negative emotions. So sometimes we're actually, doom scrolling goes this way, right? This is when I'm looking at pictures of my ex or reading about how everything in the world is going to hell. I actually engage my negative emotional mind. So why does our mind do it if it's sort of negative emotion? And that's because it's moving away from the internal self. So the mind just loves to be occupied. The mind sort of doesn't care whether it's like, it's lost in sadness or like lost in happiness. What it wants to do is be lost in an emotion and like forget about the internal self. The mind loves that. Okay? So then we sort of get into the situation where it's like, it's so easy to move away from ourselves. And so now what we have to do, unfortunately, is like getting in touch with yourself is now becoming like a harder thing to do. It didn't used to require like training, right? So we've had training for it for thousands and thousands of years, right? These are what the yogis in ancient India discovered. Buddha sort of popularized, right? And then Buddhism spread throughout East Asia and then is now like spreading across, the Western civilization, Western hemisphere. So there are skills for this, but we didn't need them before. Now with the advent of technology, this is why so many people are into meditation now, because you need to counteract this force that moves you away from your internal self. And then once again, down here, we've got Turiya, okay? So how do we do this? The first thing that I'd recommend is that if you're in this situation where you feel dead inside, go get a mental health evaluation. The first thing you should do. Okay? Why is that? It's to understand that sometimes the feeling of being dead inside is actually contributed to by a psychiatric condition. Right? So we mentioned the Cotard delusion kind of as an aside. It's exceedingly rare. I don't think, the likelihood that a single person who's watching this is having the Cotard delusion is very, very low. Right? It's like I don't think that's actually what's going on. But you may have some degree of depression. Right? You could have something like an atypical depression. You may have something like a seasonal affective disorder. There could be all kinds of things going on. And remember that like when it comes to clinical depression, like something like 20 to 35% of the population will experience this. So this number is like very high, right? And the cool thing here is that there could actually be treatment for this, right? So there may be like neurochemical signals that are altered in your brain that make it hard for you to connect to your internal self. So that feeling of despair, that feeling of like lack of motivation and stuff, there could actually be some kind of neurochemical imbalance. There could be sort of a psychiatric condition going on. And that's the kind of thing where it's like, unless you sort of get that fixed, then the rest of it is going to be very, very hard. So I'd actually start with a mental health evaluation. And this too, if we kind of look at this, I went through some stuff and I'm okay now. This is really important because even if you're okay, doesn't mean that you're like healed or fixed, right? So this is where like, it's sort of like if if I break a bone and I don't set it and fix it properly, eventually like the bone will heal and I'll be able to like walk again. Let's say I like broke a bone in my leg. Like I can walk again. It's just gonna, it's not gonna be like ideal. Like it'll be a little bit harder to walk. It'll take more energy. It'll be a little bit more painful. It'll be harder to climb stairs. And so in that way, mental injuries to us, and this person sort of says like, they get their internal image has been stabbed. So mental injuries to us also try to heal naturally, but much like physical injuries, they don't necessarily heal the right way automatically, right? They sort of like scab over, whereas like you can sort of mentally reset your mind as well if you kind of heal properly. A good example of this is trauma. So like our body will adapt and equilibrate to trauma, but that doesn't mean that it's actually healing properly. We'll sort of like develop new habits, distrust for other human beings, which is what will happen after we get traumatized. And that's sort of a natural adaptation to the injury, but it doesn't actually make it an ideal healing. So it's kind of a no-brainer, but I'd say start with a mental health evaluation because I didn't see anything in here that this person had gotten that. Okay? So, next thing that we need to do. So remember the goal here for the next steps 2, 3, 4, and 5 are going to be to like rebuild your relationship with your internal self, okay? So now what we're going to do is rebuild our connection to self. So this can be done in a manner of different like introspective, spiritual kind of things, but we're actually going to start with what's easiest. So there's this very simple principle from kind of like Eastern spirituality that you start with the body because the body is the most accessible. So what we're going to do is get our body active. And you may say, okay, what does that mean, get it active? It means just do anything that's active. Do anything that your body will send you signals. Okay, that's what we want to do. We just want to be receiving signals. So a good example of this is, let's say we go for a jog. If you go for a jog and you're huffing and puffing, after 5 minutes, you may think to yourself, oh my God, I'm screwing up so bad. I'm so out of shape. That's not the point. You're doing fantastic if you're huffing and puffing. Because what's happening in that moment is you are reconnecting with internal signals, even if you're huffing and puffing. You can go cycling. You can do push-ups, you can go for a swim, you can just get your body active. Start to re-engage this sort of like, this is the mind, and then there's stuff beneath the mind. And when you're huffing and puffing, you're not going to be thinking about anything, right? You're going to be like retouching with your internal body signals. You're going to kind of get like getting back in touch with them. Okay? So just get your body active. Just do something with your body. And the goal here is just to like feel stuff from your body. If you want to exercise, go for it. That has the added benefit. So that's like good, right? So I'd say like try to do some exercise. And small f. Okay. We okay? Saved? Saved. Okay. Next thing that we want to do in terms of getting in touch with our body, this is going to be great, is eat food. Okay, so start with the body. But once again, what you want to do is watch your body's signals in response to the food. So what we want to do is engage internal signals. So you're going to eat foods that you like, but before you eat them, you're going to pay attention. You're going to grab the food that you want to eat. You're going to stick it in front of you in a plate. And I want you to, first of all, notice the craving. Notice the desire. Then you're going to start screwing with your mind. You ready? And then you're going to say to yourself with this food that is in front of you, hey, I'm not going to eat it. I'm going to eat something healthy instead. I'm assuming that what you want is unhealthy, which is maybe something else. And watch what your mind does. right? Like your mind is, no. Because here you are, and here's the mind, and we say, well, no, we're gonna move in this direction towards the healthy food. And the mind is like, no, give me this. I want to eat it. I want to eat it. Okay? And that's okay. Like, we're not going to punish our mind, but just notice what happens within yourself. So now already, like, when you do that, it's really subtle, but it's huge what this practice does. This practice puts you down here. As you are watching the mind, right? So we've got our observer, which is like looking in this direction. So now we're like looking at the mind, and we're just kind of screwing with it. And then what you want to do is eat something that you dislike, right? So you can eat the thing that you like. But once again, what we're going to do is pay attention to, like, as we tell the mind, hey, we're moving in this direction, it's going to want to move over here. And even if you eat, it's important to eat the food that you dislike. Why is that? Because you need to experience the dislike. That's really important. So experience the dislike. Because when we experience the dislike, what we're going to do is move in this direction. Does that make sense? Because now our body is like telling us, like, you're getting tastes, you're getting flavors. It's not just thoughts. There's going to be an experience of dislike. Okay? And the likes will become the dislikes and all that. That's a different chapter. Okay? We're not worried about that right now. What we want to do is just get back in touch with our internal signals. Right? So then what's happening is, like, whether we experience likes or dislikes, now what we've got is like a better understanding of motivation towards food over here. Okay? So now, like, even if you dislike stuff deep down here, it's still waking up, right? It's not dead anymore. It's sending you bad signals. Like, I don't like this, but that's okay. We're getting signals. That's the important thing. Okay? Now, as you guys do this, now comes the advanced part. So there's going to be like sort of an advanced part, and the last part is actually going to be super, super basic, which is going to be our meditation for the day. Now, our advanced part is, as we get in touch with the likes and dislikes down here, I want you to notice what directs my thoughts. Try to answer this question. Okay, so this is like more inquisitive in nature. So like once you get in touch with, it's kind of hard to describe, but you're going to have all kinds of thoughts up here. You're going to have desires that want to move in this direction. You're going to have desires that want to move in this direction. You're going to have different kinds of actions, right? I want to do this. I want to do this. You're going to have all this crap going on up here. And then down here, you're going to have your drives. But like, what actually controls your actions? What controls your thoughts? When you end up doing something, are you operating from up here, or are you operating from down here? And this is where you're going to say, like, yeah, I don't really know. I don't really understand the question even. And that's actually totally fine. This is why you need to lay out the landscape of like how the fuck you work on the inside. And the way that we're going to do this is just by creating signals and like learning like where do these signals come from? Is this my mind? Is this my body? Is this an internal drive? Right? Is it emotions? Like, who knows? The whole point of this is so that you understand like how to control this thing that you are. Okay? Right? So like listen to your heart. Like, how do you do that? We're going to figure out, are you actually listening to your heart? What's your heart saying? And it's okay if you're being controlled by dopamine. Like, that's actually not a problem right now. The main thing is to understand it. Okay? Then we get to number 5. So I'm going to teach y'all a meditation to get in touch with your body. This meditation is called Kaya Sthiram. Okay? If you want to get in touch with your body, the best meditation to get in touch with your body is Kaya Sthiram. Okay? So, for those of you that are memeing and thinking that, oh, Kaya Sthiram means touch yourself. Oh, Dr. K is going to tell me to touch myself. Dr. K ASMR stream, touching yourself with Dr. K. No. It's going to be the very opposite of touching yourself. Kaya Sthiram is not a body scan. No. Too easy. Too easy, chat. KAYASHTIRAM. Okay? Kaya Sthiram means stillness of the body. So if you want to get the most signals from your body, All you have to do is sit perfectly still. So, if you want to feel no longer dead inside, really simple technique. Make you feel alive in 30 seconds, maybe a minute, maybe 2, maybe 3 minutes. No, Cartoon Jesse, no. So someone's saying, I do that all day long. No, you do not. You do not do Kayesh Thiram. I'm almost 100%. This does not mean sit in a chair. What I'm doing right now is not Kayesh Thiram because I'm moving. So we are going to close our eyes. We are going to sit perfectly still. And we are going to prepare ourselves for the torrent of internal signals that we're going to get, and we're not going to respond to a single damn one. You have an itch on your nose, you're not going to move. Some part of your body is falling asleep, not going to move. This feels weird, you want to move it, it's uncomfortable, not going to move. Okay? You can breathe. So you keep your muscle twitch. If it twitches automatically, that's fine. But we're not going to let it move. We're going to notice the twitch, and we're going to ignore the twitch. That sounds horrific. You're damn right. That's why y'all are dead inside, and you want to be not dead inside within like 3 minutes in 180 seconds. You want Dr. K to teach you the secret? Yeah, it's going to be like, it's not going to be fun, but you can do it. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to sit up straight. So try to keep your back straight. Okay, you can adopt a meditative posture if you want to. And then we're going to close our eyes. You can breathe if you want to, but you don't want to lose yourself in the breath. Okay, so doing breathing meditation here is cheating. What we want to do is maintain stillness of the body. Notice stillness of the body, okay? And we're going to try to do it for like 3 minutes, okay? So sit up straight, close your eyes. We're going to count back from 10 to 1, and then we're going to be perfectly still, okay? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And now we're still for 3 minutes. Notice all the signals that your body is sending you already. Maintain your stillness. Notice the slight postural disturbances. Stillness. Notice the signals that your body sends you. Maybe you're noticing hunger, an itch, a discomfort. And now you may discover what a beautiful refuge breath is. As you breathe, you may notice a distraction in stepping away from all of your internal signals. Notice how each breath is a blessed relief from stillness. No smiling. Now slow down the breath. You don't get to hang out in that refuge for too long. Return to stillness of the body. Breathe slowly. Focus on every physical sensation. Try to pause between your breaths and focus on the signals. Now we're going to try to keep going for 2 more minutes. Notice what your mind does. Does it rebel? Does it say I was only supposed to do this for 3 minutes? Ignore it. Focus on your body. Maintain your stillness. Good. Find refuge in the breath if you need to. If you're really, really struggling to move, deep breath in and out. Slow. Maintain your stillness. Focus your mind. Control your body. And now notice all the signals you're getting. In the span of these 2 or 3 minutes, the struggles you've endured, the signals from your body, and also how alive you feel when you breathe. Deep breath in. And notice that vitality within you. And now we're going to count back from 10 to 1. And after we hit 1, we'll be able to move and relax our body. And what I really want you to pay attention to is notice that as we count down, notice what happens in your body. The yearning to move will increase intensely for some people, right as we get back to 1. So now I'll count back. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Maintain stillness. Oh my God, Dr. K is counting slowly. I thought he was going to count fast. Look at your mind rebelling. No smiling. No smiling. Stillness. 5. How long is it going to take him to get back to 1? Oh my God. We can do this for a while. Ignore all of those thoughts. Maintain your stillness. Focus your mind. No moving. Refuge in the breath if you need to. 4. 3. 2. Oh my God, that last second, when is he going to hit it? Let's go. Notice your impatience. Set it aside. Focus on your body. Find refuge in your breath. The number will come when it comes. You will be still until it does. One. And relax. How was that? Okay, good. That is the right answer. Okay? I had to laugh. Why do I feel nauseous? I hated it, but also liked it. Then you're doing it right. It took so much effort. Is swallowing okay? I felt wobbly. That's crazy. Listen, let me explain something to y'all. We just sat still for like 5 minutes. That's all it was. That's just sat still for like literally. What we did is sit still for 5 minutes. Right? Like, that's all we did. Like, that's not a thing. And notice how rich your internal environment is. Holy crap. If sitting still for 5 minutes offers so much in life, both good and bad, think about how empty the rest of our life is. Like how we're living empty lives because we're not living them mindfully. Every experience of your life can be as intense as that. Every bite of food you can eat, as intense as that. Every time you step into the sun and feel the sun on your face, as intense as that. Living life with intensity, finding, like, losing track of, like, this person that you are inside, you feel dead inside. Yeah, it's because we don't live life like that. We live life like in a fucking haze. Sitting still for 5 minutes can be such a wealth of experience. Intense, man. Like the relief you feel at the end, the struggles with your mind. It's like, you know what I was envisioning that y'all are doing, what it felt like to me? I could feel it. It felt to me like you're the captain of a ship in stormy seas, and the seas are trying to, like, break your ship apart, but you're holding steady in your course. And then even though you're getting rocked and bumped and there's gale force winds and all this kind of stuff, you're going to keep the ship going in the direction you tell it to go. And somehow, like, suddenly now breathing feels amazing. Like, who knew that breathing could feel so good? Moving, which we do all the time, just fidget, can feel amazing. And it's all about up here, right? This is the biggest problem that we've lost track of, is we've started to believe that living a life of fulfillment is like comes from the outside. And when all these fucking Instagram gurus, right, of which we may be guilty, who knows? I don't even really understand. We'll say, like, oh my God, you have to, like, live life, like happiness comes from within. Like, what do you think people mean when they say that? 90% of them don't know what they're talking about. But the 10% who are actually saying this is what it means when fulfillment and, like, life comes from, like, within, like, this is what they mean. It's because they figured out that our internal experience of things is where, like, intensity and passion and enjoyment comes from. Even negativity can be intense. Like, can you imagine if you were just relaxed that whole time, like how empty that experience would have been? Like if you were just chilling and comfortable, like laying in the sun and, like, really, like, sure, it'd be, like, enjoyable, but, like, just think about, like, what you accomplished. You sat still for 5 minutes. It's so intense. Right? So, like, that's the thing. So, you know, if y'all are feeling dead on the inside, you got to get in touch with yourself. But everyone's like, oh, like, get in touch with your inner child. Like, oh my God. You know, like, what does that mean? This is how you do it. Like, literally, this is what you have to do. When you eat food, when you exercise, it doesn't have to be exercise. Just do something that gets your body to send you signals and be with those signals. Right? I feel like this would have been even more intense if we did it in total silence. You're absolutely correct. And you're not ready for that, which is why I was there with you. Right? So next time, you're going to be on your own without Dr. K. So you're the captain of the ship in stormy waters. Dr. K is the little tugboat that's along for the ride and is going to be giving you all a hand. But when you're ready to go sail into those waters on your own, could be today, could be now, could be tomorrow, then by all means do it. And you're damn right it's going to be way harder. Right? 5 minutes with yourself. Okay? So how do you get in touch with yourself if you feel dead on the inside? This is how. The process of getting in touch with yourself can literally be trained. Right? So let's kind of recap and wrap up. Number one, oftentimes our early years are filled with joy and light and excitement. And then sometimes our 20s hit. And then, like, things happen, right? And this vision of the world that we had starts to, like, fall apart. And it's not what I thought it was. It's not as fun as I used to be. Like, your excitement for life goes. Like, as life, you know, drags you through crap, it extinguishes the desire to live from you, the excitement for life. Then what happens is we sort of get stuck in this situation where we're chasing dopamine. We're chasing enjoyment of the mind and losing sight of ourselves in the process. Because you can like watch YouTube for 8 hours a day. Like you can do that, but you're not going to look like there's going to be like, it'll entertain your mind, but the rest of you will become like empty. And then what happens is we like start to struggle because we don't have motivation. We have like no desire. Like they're like in here, there's nothing coming out of this. There's no like, I don't feel like doing anything. So then what does the mind do? It does one of two things. Well, I used to want to do this, so let me do that again. Let me go back to the way that I used to be. Then we end up getting stuck because we're moving backwards, but you can't really move backwards. So you're just staying still. Then you feel stuck because you're not moving forward. You're chasing after what's gone, and then you're just kind of there. It's also easy to get lost in the dopamine of it, right? Like mind doesn't like getting in here because sometimes in here there's nasty stuff. So how do we get back in touch with this? First, use your body. It's the easiest way. Okay? There are other ways too, more mental in nature, but use your body. It's easy. It's very easy. Right? So like engage your body. Do something that your body is sending you signals, good or bad. So if you're take a cold shower, that's unpleasant, but your body is sending you a signal. Take a warm shower, but if you take a warm shower, this is important. Enjoy the warmth, right? Really feel that warmth. The problem with relaxing stimulation for the body is that it gives our mind the tendency to wander. Okay? You can eat food that both you like and dislike and notice the different signals that your body sends you. Last thing is notice what directs your thoughts and your actions. And then Gayashtiram. Sit perfectly still, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 7 minutes, whatever you can handle. And notice the torrent of things that comes up for you. So we should focus in our body at all times. During the practices, yes. Pay attention. And then what you'll naturally do is you'll start to get in touch with your internal self. And the cool thing is once you learn how to look within you, it starts with the body because the body's going to be sending you lots of signals. Then what you can do is continue to look within you. Now that you know how to look within you, it's easy because like the body's sending you signals so you know exactly where to look. But once I know, okay, this is where I'm going to look, even in the absence of signals, I can still look there. And that's when I'll start to discover like internal stuff. Okay, so someone's asking, when is Gayashtiram too much? Not yet is the answer. So I think you can do this practice for 20 minutes at a stretch. Like once you've trained your body properly, you can easily do it for 20 minutes. Some yogis will do it for days, right? So I don't recommend that. But I'd say like 20 minutes of stillness is good. Okay? Yeah, so I have depersonalization disorder, but this was the first time for a while I talked to my body. Hopefully that's a good thing, right? So remember that if you're depersonalizing, there may be a reason for that. Right? So sometimes some of these depersonalization disorders and stuff are responses to like protect you. So don't rush it, especially if you've been diagnosed with something. Definitely talk to your treater about stuff like that. Got it? 5 minutes and then build up to 20? Absolutely. It's a good way to do it. Days after that, I'd feel like I'm walking on air. Now y'all understand why enlightenment leads to happiness. Because once you do these spiritual practices, every moment of your life is walking on air. Excellent. Someone saying, hey, sorry, just tuned in. What do you let your mind do while staying still? Oh, your mind isn't going to be, your mind will have plenty to do. All you have to do is try not to move, and your mind will be occupied. Don't worry about it. Go back and watch the VOD and do the practice. Okay? It's okay. So it's a great question. I'm laughing because I think chat just experienced something. I'm not trying to keep you out. Seriously, you should go watch this. It's just, so I want y'all to notice that question and notice the questions of the intellect. and how absurd the questions of the intellect can sound to someone with experience. Do y'all get that? It's like the question is completely appropriate, right? So this is someone who's smart, is figured out, okay, like if I'm focusing on my body, what do I let my mind do? Isn't meditation about focusing the mind? It's an excellent question, right? And also like completely irrelevant. So once you do the practice, you'll see that your mind, I mean, maybe you do have to occupy your mind. I'm not sure. So if you're able to do Kayesh theorem without any difficulty, then you probably want to move on to a more mental meditation, which is like mantra or something like that. That's what I would recommend. All right. Okay, next one. Yeah, so I noticed that when we were counting down the last 10 seconds slowly, I was getting more and more anxious, closer to being done. Yeah, that's why I was counting slowly, to make it harder for you. Because y'all were such chads. Y'all were doing so good that we had to make things difficult. Right? You couldn't stop laughing? Good. So next time I won't be there. This is easy mode. Little tugboat. Dr. K's your little tugboat. Next time, y'all are on your own. Okay? So here's the other thing. Next level play. So if you were meditating for 5 minutes and you couldn't help but laugh during that time, you're meditating right. Right? That's what's actually beautiful about meditation. It's like what? You were laughing for 5 minutes without any kind of joke or funny video or TikTok or anything like that. You were just sitting with yourself and like couldn't suppress laughter. You're doing it right. Right? So someone's saying, what if you're crying? You're doing it right. Right? So whatever is within is coming out. You're in touch with yourself. This is an antidote to being dead on the inside. Y'all get this? It's very important to understand. Okay. Okay, so I'm noticing a lot of questions. Do you guys... Okay, let's say there are good questions here, so we're going to talk about it. Okay, so number one. Okay, Dr. K, what if it becomes a mindless habit like other meditation after a while? Then you're doing the meditation wrong. So it's a very common problem, but it's also incorrect that once our body develops a habit, it puts it on autopilot and then our mind likes to wander, right? So the whole purpose of meditation is to not let your mind wander and have it focus on one thing. And you can get good at that. So you can like breathe for 10 minutes without it becoming a habit, as long as you learn how to control your attention. Okay, but it is a danger. So for a lot of people who find that their body acclimatizes, this is why we teach different meditation techniques. So for some people, one meditation technique is good enough. But for a lot of people that I work with, especially like people with like ADHD and stuff, what they'll do is entrain their habit circuitry. And so I'll mix up their meditation quite a bit. There's a reason why I don't do the same meditation on stream every single week, right? Because what's going to happen is all y'all are going to check out and it's going to become automatic. So that's why we teach new meditations. And over time, what you'll do, the level of focus you're training is going to be like every meditation you do is leveling up your focus without letting you engender some kind of habit and distraction. So if you do this enough times without getting distracted, then your mind will learn how to focus without it developing a habit. So that's why you should just mix up your meditation. Okay? Next question is... I forgot. There was another good one. What if the only thing coming is rage and anger? Then let it come and stay still. Do not lose yourself in the rage and anger, right? Because remember, the Kayesh theorem practice is about staying still and maintaining that. Don't get lost in that. Let those rage and anger will come and they'll go. Just like an itch comes and goes. Just like, the hunger comes and goes. Just like, the tickling sensation comes and goes. Everything will come and go. You stay still. Okay? Someone's asking, what if I want to smash everything in my room out of anger? Don't. Stay still. You can want to do stuff. Don't do it. The practice is to stay still. Easy. Okay? How do you control their thoughts? Is there a way? There's absolutely a way, but it's more than I can answer right now. Okay. There was another question, but I'm missing it now. Okay. A lot of good questions. So you let it come, but don't give in? That's perfect. What if I fall asleep? You can sleep if you want to. You better not move a damn muscle. I don't care if you sleep. No moving. All y'all are asking all these like questions, but like it's simple. The instructions are simple. What if I fall asleep? Don't move. You're like, but if I sleep, I can't control whether I move. Good, then don't fall asleep. Sit for 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 8 minutes, 9 minutes, 10 minutes. You have one job, just sit fucking still for 5 minutes. What if I become aroused? Then you're aroused, right? What if this? What if this? What if this? What if this? Do you see how your mind loves to rebel? There's the intellect again. Oh, but Dr. K, what about this? Oh, if I fall asleep, but then I'm going to fall asleep. I guess I better not do it. The fuck? You're not going to fall asleep. You'll be fine. You guys see that? So much resistance. Like, I get the intellectual curiosity. I really do. And if anyone feels, like I'm being, I'm beating up on particular people for asking questions. It's like, I do it with love. Hopefully y'all are getting that. It's seriously like your mind is going to come up with all these kinds of questions. Most of the questions are good. And also like, they're sort of irrelevant. Like, this is the whole thing y'all have to understand, is that the purpose of the Kaish theorem practice is to help you understand how intense the experience of life can be. The mental crap is just floating around up here, right? Like, just sit, and then all of your answers will be right there. Okay? You sometimes have an erection during meditation. Is that normal? It's very normal. Okay, random question, which I will answer randomly. Dr. K, why is marijuana so bad on reinforcing patterns of behavior? Because the habit circuitry in your brain uses endocannabinoid signals and receptors. That's why. So the parts of our brain that form habits use the endocannabinoid system. So like the neurotransmitters that have to do with habit formation are cannabinoids. So what happens when you use pot is that like you're tossing in a bunch of artificial cannabinoids, which in turn are going to hit receptors in your like habit formation circuitry, because that's what's going to happen. And then when they hit those receptors, you're going to start reinforcing weird behaviors. It's really interesting. Okay. All right, so someone's asking about jobs. Let's talk about jobs. All right, let me see. Okay. Next up. Okay. I feel like I won't be employable when I graduate. So I'm a graphic design student, and I mean, how the jokes of the unemployed art student go. But even if I have trouble finding a job due to mostly external reasons, I think I can cope with it. If things are looking pessimistic, I can accept lower paying jobs and move towns, etc. Not an insanely big deal. However, the thing is that my university doesn't really teach us how to design. They just give us projects and make us try our best. It's too late for me to transfer, and I'm honestly very frustrated with my uni, but you may say, why don't you teach yourself how to design? That's the thing. When I tried to do that, I barely had time for the insane workload I was given. It's always a balancing act between learning the basics of what you're in uni for and doing assignments. I just don't know what to do anymore. There's so many things I don't know, and I don't trust myself to learn them over the summer, as the past 2 were spent being depressed in my home. I'm already picturing the crappy state of my portfolio as I try to apply for jobs. No one cares if it's because my uni is a uni, a job is a job. I'm already seeing this now as I struggle at my work internship, and I honestly feel horrible. Like a mix of self-hate and incredible frustration towards my uni. I seriously don't know what to do. Okay. So this, unfortunately, is a problem that I've seen a lot during, especially COVID. So what's happening is I've seen a lot of university students feeling more and more pessimistic about their opportunities, their work opportunities after college. So a lot of people are feeling like really, really, not good about this. So what I'm seeing a lot of is that sometimes we have college students who are like afraid that their university is not preparing them the way that they're supposed to be. Universities aren't teaching, right? Especially with like online school and stuff like that. Like it's been really hard because the quality of education that most people are getting is going down. Furthermore, they're so busy and or so mentally burnt out that the independent learning that they should be doing to fix things is like just so hard because they're either mentally burnt out or there's a lot of busy work or other crap like that. So it's sort of like you're placed in this situation. You can't transfer. You're not getting the skills that you need. You don't have time to teach yourself the stuff. And so you're kind of just like doomed, right? And there's this kind of attitude that people have that I'm screwed because I'm not going to be employable. And like, I can see, it's sort of like you're on a train that's headed towards a cliff. And you can see the cliff coming. You can see that there's a railroad, like there's like railroad tracks that are going straight towards the cliff. Like you can't change direction. You can't slow down the train. You're like committed. And like there's the cliff and you're kind of screwed. So it can be very, very, very scary for people to like be in this situation where they feel like they're not getting adequately prepared. The tricky thing here is that there are a couple of different pieces to this puzzle that we have to consider in order to understand how to navigate towards like becoming employable. The first is, it's kind of weird, but where is your idea of how employable you are, right? So the first question you've got to ask yourself is how qualified are you to know how employable you are? So this person was kind of saying, I have a crappy portfolio. I can envision the piece of crap portfolio that I'm putting together. Whereas you have to really stop for a second and think a little bit about like, do you know what people who are looking for entry-level, graphic design artists are looking for? Right? So you're going to get your first job out of college. Like, what are they looking for? What are the requirements? How much of what you actually do in the workplace do you even learn in college? Right? So let's kind of start there for a second. Because the truth is that chances are you're actually going to be totally fine. And we'll get to that in a second. But like most people, who are hiring for the first time understand that you're coming right out of college. Most people also understand in the workplace that when you hire someone out of college, what really college is for is, or uni is for, is developing a foundation upon which you build your skills. So just as an example, like, in medical school is intense, right? So medical school is like 4 years. And there's a lot to learn in medical school. You're studying a ton. And you probably learn I probably learned like 5 to 10% of what I use as a psychiatrist in medical school. In the next 4 years during residency, you learn like 95% of psychiatry. So it's kind of bizarre. But that's true for a lot of other professions too. And graphic design, I think, is generally speaking, in a sense, no different. Is that people know that, if you're out of college, you're out of college. You're not going to be expected to be perfect. So then the question kind of comes in, like, then why does this person feel this way, right? Where are these thoughts coming from? Where's the pessimism coming from? And let's kind of take a second look at the post and kind of highlight a few things. Okay? So jokes of unemployment right at the start. if things are looking pessimistic, so this seems kind of optimistic, right? Doesn't teach us how to design. They give us projects, but they don't really teach me anything. I don't know what to do. They feel like they're learning the basics. They kind of spent some time depressed at home. I'm already picturing the crappy state of my portfolio as I try to apply to jobs. No one cares, right? Like, I'm already seeing this now as I struggle at my work internship, and honestly, I feel horrible. So this is kind of tricky. But, and this is something I've seen a lot during the pandemic, like I said. So I'm going to point out to y'all a little bit about what's going on in the mind and how this person is coming to conclusions. So if you're someone that thinks that you're not prepared for the job market, you have to remember that your mind is making that conclusion, right? But how qualified is your mind, and what is your mind influenced by? Let's take a look. So if you're a college student who feels unprepared, let's start to understand a couple things. One is, how qualified are you? To know your employability. Second thing is, where does your mind get the idea that you're unemployable? Okay? So, first thing is that you're not really very qualified. Because, like, how many people have you interviewed for design positions? Do you know what companies look for when they're hiring? Are you part of HR? Have you don't know, right? Like, I know it's kind of weird, but, like, you have no idea what people are looking for. And actually, this person seems quite attractive in terms of a lot of the things that they're doing. So this is kind of weird, but, like, the short answer is, like, you're not an expert in, like, hiring graphic designers. You have no idea what people are looking for. So we're not saying that you aren't. Maybe you should be pessimistic. I don't know. But let's just start by sort of understanding, if you're a college student, you have no idea what people who are, like, actually hiring are looking for, and the skill set that matters to them and things like that. You just don't know, right? So you're just, first thing is, how qualified are you? The answer is not very. So if you're not very qualified, why are you freaking out, right? And it turns out there's a really good reason for this. So in college, especially like pre-pandemic, so in college, a big part of college is developing confidence. And what I've seen more and more often is that, like, this confidence kind of comes from things like grades. It comes from being, a junior or senior and working, like, being a TA for freshmen, for example. Right? So, like, it comes from grades, comes from junior, senior, comes from, generally speaking, like, learning more advanced things over time. It also comes from feedback from peers and professors. So this is really important, right? Because a lot of confidence isn't actually learning the on-the-job stuff. It's like learning things like work ethic, deadlines. This is really what college is about. And then we get these different kinds of things that give us confidence. So here's what I've noticed. During the pandemic, during online schooling, so as more programs move to online, these kinds of confidence developing things get decreased. Because you're not interacting with freshmen as much, you're not quite a TA. Even if you are a TA, if it's online, you don't really form relationships with people. It's kind of like you're just kind of reviewing work and stuff like that. So what's happening is that as our college situation and our pandemic situation changes, I'm noticing a global decrease in the amount of confidence that people have coming out of college. Okay? And then this is creating further problems. So once you lack confidence, now we're answering this question a little bit better. So once we determine that we lack confidence, then what happens is our mind concludes we are screwed. Now, has this person applied for a job? No. Do they know what employers are looking for? No. And yet their mind still comes to the conclusion that they're screwed. But where does that conclusion stem from? It stems from a lack of confidence. I'm not blaming this person for doing that. That's what happens to everyone, right? So unless we're given confidence through some of these reinforcing measures, unless one of your professors, because I think this is the problem they face, is like their professors are too mentally checked out. They're not saying, hey, you're doing a really great job. What I'm not hearing from this person at all is anywhere in here someone telling them, hey, you're doing a good job. You're doing great. You're managing the workload. I know it's a lot. We're not seeing any positive reinforcement. And when there's an absence of positive reinforcement in our college experience or in any other part of life, that leads to a lack of confidence. It's not a personal failing on this person's part. It's like it's not their job to be naturally confident. Confidence comes from the reinforcement of people who are more experienced than you are. And in the absence of that, they're going to naturally end up with a lack of confidence. Then they're going to conclude that they're screwed. This in turn is going to activate the ahamkar. Right? So remember, ahamkara, A-H-A-M-K-A-R-A, the Sanskrit word for ego, is a defensive mechanism that arises to protect you when you are feeling bad. So when we lack confidence, the ahamkar activates. Ahamkar to the rescue. And then the ahamkar, unfortunately, does a couple things that can be weird. One is it makes comparisons. Right? So how does this person know that their portfolio is going to look like trash? It's because they've looked at other portfolios. Right? So even if you look at this, how does this person, okay, so that's the thing. So like it's always a balance act between learning the basics of what you're in uni and doing assignments. I don't know what to do anyway. There's so many things I don't know. Right? So they're aware that there are a lot of things that they don't know yet. They're aware of the growth that they need to have. That's actually really healthy. We'll see that in a second. But all they're focusing on, they're not focusing on the things that they do know and all the things that they've learned. They're not focusing on the fact that they've successfully completed assignments. What the ahamkar is going to do when we lack confidence, when we have the ahamkar, this is going to result in cognitive distortions. Okay? And these cognitive distortions are all going to be negative in nature. So they're going to focus on all the things that you don't know. Because you're not even going to appreciate, you're so buried with all your workload that you're actually doing, that you don't even appreciate how much you've learned, because all you felt week after week, month after month after month is that you're like alone in the ocean, stranded by yourself with no sense of feedback, right? You're trying to navigate through fog and you can't see anything. So of course you're going to feel lost because you're not getting any feedback from anyone. This, in turn, is going to result in, I'm unemployable. Because you're going to look at all the other people. You're going to go look at like design portfolios of professionals who have websites, and you're going to compare your crappy design portfolio to theirs. And then you're going to conclude, oh, wow, look at how awesome that person is. Forget the fact that they have like 8 years of experience. You're going to conclude, I'm unemployable because this is my competition. Now, this is where things get really tricky, because once you start looking for a job with this attitude, what do you think this attitude is going to do in terms of shaping the job that you get? Here's what's going to happen. Okay, first thing that's going to happen is you're going to avoid the best jobs. Okay? You're going to avoid the best jobs, for sure. Because there's no way that this person would hire you. Right? Because you're unemployable. So the first thing that you're going to do is knock out the 50% of jobs that are awesome. Or like not awesome, that are good, right? So the top 50%. So let's say here's all the jobs that you can get. This is the perfect job. This is the shittiest job that you can get. The first thing that you're going to do is X out this. So now all that's left is the bottom half. Next thing that's going to happen is like when you go in interview places, because of your lack of like confidence in yourself, you're going to naturally attract toxic workplaces. I know it's kind of weird, but this is almost a situation kind of like when you have been abused growing up, you look for partners that will continue to abuse you because it's like, it feels right, right? Even if it's not good for you, it feels right. So when you go to an interview and someone treats you with a little bit of disrespect, or they're like, yeah, I don't know if you actually have what it takes, but we'll give you a chance. That's actually going to align with your internal sense of self. So you'll be like, oh, like these people like know what to expect from me, so let me work there. So over time, what you're going to do is you're also going to shoot yourself in the foot in terms of negotiations. And because you think so little of yourself, you lack that confidence, right? And so like what you're going to end, this is what gets really tricky. So when I say toxic workplace, why do I say toxic? Because someone with more confidence would be able to walk away from like mistreatment during the hiring process, right? Someone with more confidence who recognizes the value they bring to the table. If a boss is like, are you willing to work nights and weekends and not get paid for it? Are you willing to get me coffee? And like someone with confidence is going to be like, no. Whereas like you, if you're worried, right? So look at how much they're already willing to compromise against themselves to make it work, right? Self-compromise. You're going to shoot yourself in the foot. You're going to compromise, right? It's tricky. Then what's going to happen? This is the worst thing. They're going to get a job. It's going to be toxic. They're going to burn out. And then what is this going to do? Reinforce their original beliefs. I knew it. I knew I was unemployable. I knew I was unemployable. Now you're burnt out. Now you can't even work, right? We're back to the summer where is this? They gave us, why don't you teach yourself? It's a balancing act. Yeah. Like I barely had time for the workload I was given. Like burning out, can't learn stuff during the summer. The summer's supposed to be a break, right? It's not supposed to be where you learn. You knew it. I told you so. Your mind is like, hey, your humcar was like, I warned you about this, buddy. I tried to protect you by telling you that you shouldn't expect to get a job. Look at you, dumbass. Thought you could get a job. Becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Right? And then this cycle just repeats. Now you make more compromises. It's tough. Right? This is what our mind does. I think this person is awesome, for the record. But that's what our mind does, right? So like we see this a lot where like our mind will warn us, hey, don't try. And then when we try, our mind is like, I told you so. Why did you bother? I tried to protect you from this. You should have never applied for the job in the first place. And then we end up getting stuck because we don't want to, like our mind is like, don't apply for the job. Don't apply for the job. I'm so anxious. I tried to change my life and I got smacked down. We can sometimes start to form negative opinions about the world. Oh, then all workplaces are toxic, right? Like all kinds of things can come out of that. So here's the crazy thing. I think you are very employable. Why? Because you are self-directed. You get your stuff done without guidance or support. You have humility. Maybe a little bit too much. You know what you don't know. A couple of other things that I'm sort of picking up here is that you're isolated. So here's what I'd say. We're going to kind of start at the end and we're going to work our way backwards. Okay? When you apply for a job, you can say, hey, I have a design degree from this. I've completed this many projects. I'm highly self-directed. So unfortunately, the university I had didn't have a whole lot of hand-holding. Like, they just sort of gave us projects and we're like, figure it out. So the funny thing is, like, this is how a graphic designer works in the real world now, right? So, like, we even employ them at HG. Like, we employ designers. And, like, self-direction is huge because what happens is someone comes to you and they're like, hey, we want you to make this thing. And then it's, like, up to you to figure it out, right? Like, companies are going to hire you so that you can do it. So you're actually perfect. This is great. If you had a bunch of hand-holding, like, oddly enough, I'd be more worried about you in the job market. Your university experience actually mirrors what a lot of, like, work experiences can be like. This is great. It's a huge thing. Sucks for you. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that, like, I didn't wish things were different for you. It'd be really nice if especially people could give you feedback. That's what I think is really missing. But you're self-directed. You can manage project timelines. You are good at, like, learning skills on the fly. Right? So this is what I would say, like, in your application. So I'd put together your portfolio. Don't worry about how crappy it is because it can only be so good, right? And you're, like, people understand you're new at this. So, like, this is what you kind of, like, this is how you spin it. So you can just say, look, so I'm good at managing project timelines. I'm self-directed. I have a list of stuff that I'd like to learn more about that I didn't get a chance to learn in university. So you have to change the way you say things, right? You didn't say, I didn't learn anything. There's so much I don't know. I'm so incompetent. No. Instead of what you say is, here are the skills that I learned. I'm proficient in A, B, and C. And you've got to be proficient in something if you've got a portfolio. Here are the 6 things that I'm really hoping to learn because I think they'd really enhance my ability to, like, make graphics. All that stuff that you don't know, right? I'm good at learning skills that are needed, and I'm good at managing my own work. I went to a university that was actually, I wish I had a little bit more structure. Now, here's the cool thing. You're also going to be careful about where you work because you're isolated. So when people at the job interview, this is where the lack of confidence comes in. When people at the job interview are like, do you have any questions for us? If you lack confidence and you're not selective, you're going to ask some generic question that you Googled, what questions should I ask in a job interview? Instead, you are going to be very careful about the questions that you ask. So you're going to ask them, what is, like, the community environment here at your workplace? Do people work sort of siloed or do they work, like, together? Okay? And you're going to pick the place, if you're feeling isolated, that people collaborate. You can even tell them, I'm really interested in collaborating with other designers to learn from other people and share what I have. Is that something that I'll get to do here? You want to know that ahead of time, okay? Second thing is, what are the learning opportunities? Because remember, the problem you need to fix is this, right? You don't trust yourself to learn them. So what you're going to look for in a workplace is, I'm really interested in structured learning opportunities or opportunities to learn these particular things. Like, and how does that come across to your prospective employer? The way you come across is not like demanding or ignorant. In fact, it comes across like the exact opposite way. Hey, this is someone who's actually, like, interested in, like, learning more, and you kind of come across as a go-getter. It's going to increase your esteem for most employers. Right? You'll get that? And so suddenly, like, with this situation, you're actually a pretty strong candidate. If your portfolio sucks, it sucks, but, like, you have no idea if it sucks or not, right? You have no idea what an entry-level designer should be capable of. I don't know. I can't judge that. Maybe it does suck. I just don't know. But I'd guess, based on the mental stuff that I see here, your cognitive bias is actually making your work appear far worse than it is. Okay? So, I know it's kind of weird, but this is the last step. Before you do that, what you need to do is offset your emotions. Okay? So like you need to do some like internal processing here and really think a little bit about answering these questions. Where does my lack of confidence come from? Right? What does it feel like to be a student at this university? What would have to happen or have to be different for me to feel confident? And now this is kind of interesting. So this is like a tricky question that you can get trapped by a lot. So what your cognitive distorted mind may say is learn all that stuff. If I knew how to do all that stuff, or if I had a really beautiful portfolio, then I would be confident. But those aren't real goals. I know it sounds kind of weird, but that's not like a real thing you can do, right? It's just sort of like this weird, vague idea of I'll be confident when I'm confident. Like having a beautiful portfolio, what does that even mean? Like how do you measure whether your portfolio is beautiful? So this is tricky where your mind will say, oh, if I had a brilliant portfolio, then I'd be confident. But that's kind of like your mind is setting you up for a task that can only fail. Because how do you have a beautiful portfolio? Who measures that? How can you move 1% towards a beautiful portfolio? How can you grind 10%, 15%, 20% towards a beautiful portfolio? You can't, it's an unachievable goal. Now, for those particular skills, you can pick one and start to learn it. But be careful. So what do y'all think is going to happen if this person picks a skill and starts to learn it? Do you think this will increase their confidence or decrease their confidence? Tricky. Right? Now, do you think this will actually increase their marketability or decrease their marketability? It'll increase their marketability if they learn a skill, but it'll decrease their confidence. Okay. Now, hold on a second. Hold on. If this is the situation that they're in, what do you think that says about the relationship between their confidence and their marketability? Uh-oh. It's almost as if the two are inversely proportional, right? So as the confidence goes down, the marketability goes up. So skill acquisition is our x-axis, right? And then, so like the funny thing is they could be right here, which actually means they're quite marketable and lacking confidence, which is how we get to this post. Y'all see that? So you have to be really, really careful about how your mind works, because sometimes your mind will like sort of have the opposite effect that you think it's going to have. Okay? So you got to process those emotions. And then hopefully over time, what I'd say is that last thing to kind of consider is that like, let me just think about this, if I did this right. So yeah, employability, offset your emotions. Yeah, and what I'd really try to do is get some feedback. So this is going to be really important. So a lot of times people in this situation who lack confidence avoid feedback. They avoid it. Okay? And why is that? It's because you're afraid that someone else is going to tell you what you believe could be true about yourself. But as long as you don't hear it from them, like, you could be wrong, right? So when you ask for feedback, what you're actually taking away is hope. Unless you get feedback, like there's the hope, like, so it's kind of tricky. Because when you ask someone else what they think of you, It's so difficult. But this is the problem, is that like you're kind of stuck now because the confidence is actually going to come from positive reinforcement from other people to a certain degree. I know we've sort of said that it comes from within, but that's a little bit more complicated. And so now you're kind of tricky, but like I'd say start getting feedback, because if we're really talking about your employability, you need to get feedback, because that's really what's going to fix it. And be aware that you're going to be afraid of what they're going to say. So just be aware of that kind of going in, right? That's where we have to kind of offset your emotions. And this is where like offsetting your emotions, this is where like going to therapy, you could work with a coach, you could talk to friends, you could do introspection, go for hikes, right? But just like get the F off the internet. And you don't just compare yourself to random portfolios for people who have paid people to have really strong SEO, right? Because like if you're Googling portfolios, like there's going to be all kinds of factors that go into that. You're not getting a fair sample. When you Google a portfolio, Google knows which portfolios are the most attractive to look at. So it's going to show you the top 0.00001% of portfolios on the internet, right? Like there's all kinds of crap that is going into your cognitively distorted head. And search engines are not helping, right? So got to be careful about that. So offset your emotions and get some feedback, right? So ask people, hey, here's my portfolio. Would you be willing to take a look? What improvements do you think I can make to make myself more marketable for my first job? It's a question you can ask your professors. Make sense? So you got to get feedback. And the other wild thing may happen when you get feedback. Actually, I think it's pretty good. I think you're well positioned for an entry-level graphic design job. And then, boy, one of two things will happen. So if you get good feedback, oh boy, what a mess. If you get good feedback, one of two things will happen. One is you'll gain confidence. I'd give this a 25% chance. The other thing that'll happen is mental gymnastics to convince yourself that you are unemployable. 75%. And what does this look like? He's just saying that because they are my professor. Y'all get that? Or it can manifest in other ways. What it could do is, he says, oh yeah, overall they look really fantastic. I'd consider adding more color. Then what your mind is going to do is ignore the positive and jump to the negative. And really pay attention. Pay attention. Right? Because that's what this bad boy is going to do. So just pay attention. Pay attention to what they actually say. Right? So it's tricky. So get some feedback, manage your emotions, because you want to go in like not feeling like you're the worst person on the planet. Because if you enter the job search that way, it's going to be tough. It's hard enough as it is, even for someone who's confident. Right? There could be all kinds of other stuff, like imposter syndrome is huge here. And then ultimately, I think, you may be more employable than you give yourself credit for. So just to kind of summarize, I know it's tricky, because a lot of times we feel like, especially as college students, like we lack the feedback with the pandemic and with more online learning and some of these degrees like graphic design that are a little bit more siloed. Like as college students, it's like really hard to be confident about your job prospects. Pile on top of that, like everything you're seeing about how the world is falling apart, and it's just food for your cognitive distortions. And then your cognitive distortions get really, really, really big. You lose your confidence. And then your lack of confidence plus your ego, which sort of arises as a result, then creates conclusions for you that you're not really qualified to make. Like you have no idea what an intro-level graphic design person is looking for. right? And then remember, there's that famous joke or whatever about, there's like a famous piano teacher, let's say, and they have two students that come to them. And one is like, hey, I'd like to learn piano. And they'd say, okay, how much experience do you have? And they say, I've never played a piano in my life. They're like, great, I'll charge you $100 a week. The second person comes along and they say, I want to learn piano from you. And they say, okay, how much experience do you have? And they said, I have 5 years of experience. Great, I'm going to charge you $300 a week. And they said, well, why? Wait, hold on. But I already know how to do half of it. Why are you charging me more? And they're like, yeah, well, like I have to teach you to unlearn a bunch of crap. So I have to like wipe your slate clean, whereas this person's slate is already clean. There are a lot of jobs that really just prefer good, especially for intro level positions, really are looking for good work ethic and good self-direction. They'll teach you what you need to know, or they want you to do things in a particular style anyway. So you have no idea how employable you are, but your lack of confidence will convince you, despite the fact that you have no objective information, you have no experience hiring intro-level graphic designers, so you don't really know what they look for. But your mind doesn't tell you that it's ignorant, right? Instead, what does the lack of confidence will start coming up with answers for you. And it'll tell you, hey, you're screwed. And we see this a lot in online learning, pandemic-related stuff, siloed fields, because you don't get that kind of feedback and confidence from your peers, from your professors, things like that. So at the end of the day, you've got to be careful, because if that lack of confidence is what's in the driving seat when you look for a job, first thing is you're going to ignore all the best jobs that those may have been the right places for you. Because with your work ethic and the right kind of community, maybe you could have really knocked it out of the park. But you're not going to apply for those because you don't think you're going to get them. Reminds me of my first research assistant position at Harvard Medical School, which I got because I was the only applicant. I applied for 140 positions. And the ones that were at the medium level universities had the most competition. And some of the most, like, there's like a glut of mediocrity for jobs sometimes, where the most competitive jobs don't actually get as many candidates as like the medium competitiveness jobs. Right? Bizarre. Because everyone is like, oh, I don't think I can get the job there. Oh, this feels right to me. This is like a better fit. Oh, wow, these people are paying $75,000? I thought I'm only worth 50. Let me apply for the 51. So you got to be careful about that kind of stuff. So you may end up being more employable than you realize. And if you're not careful, you're going to select through a selection bias. You're going to pick for worse jobs. And then even in the interview process, you're going to gravitate towards toxic workplaces that treat you the way that you feel about yourself, because then it's like, then there's no imposter syndrome. Y'all get that? If you end up at a toxic workplace that treats you like crap and you feel like crap, you're not going to feel like an imposter. It's going to feel, at least it fits. Whereas if they treat you really well because you're grossly misunderestimating your value, you're going to feel like an imposter. You're like, I don't understand. Like, I don't know that much. Why are these people treating me so well? They're saying I'm doing a good job. And it's going to take you a little while for that to sink in, that maybe you're actually worth something. So what you got to do in order to overcome this is, first of all, recognize that you may be more employable than you realize. You have a lot of good stuff going for you, right? You're self-directed. You're interested in learning. You want to do a good job. You've completed a lot of projects. It sounds like you can handle high workloads. So I would emphasize all that kind of stuff, right? That you're a workhorse, you're self-directed, you're interested in learning. And you got to offset those emotions and focus on that confidence. Recognize where all these thoughts coming from. They're coming from some emotional place. And so like dig into that and work on that, because you don't want that to be front and center when you go looking for the job. And the last thing is, as terrifying as it is, get some actual feedback from people who can advise you about like how you can strengthen your portfolio or how to start building one. And the fact that you're thinking about it and it sounds like you don't have one yet, it's actually perfect. So you can even ask your professors, like, what makes a good portfolio? Or ask people who are like, if there's like a job placement department at your university, ask them like, how does one build a strong portfolio? And get some actual answers from people who may know more. And then start moving towards that. And be aware though, because there's one really tricky thing that we don't want to forget. One tricky, a lot of traps here, but this is the main trap, is that even if you get good feedback, even if you get good feedback, so recognize this, that as you start to improve and as you start to build your portfolio, you may get this discrepancy between confidence and marketability. That the better you're doing, your mind may tell you that you're doing worse. And even if you get good feedback, there's going to be another kind of mental trick here where your mind may try to convince you that the feedback is not actually valid, even though you're the one that asked for it. So be careful about those two little tricks. Okay? Questions? I'm doing well. What do I think about fake it till you make it? So I think, so fake it till you make it is generally something that I'm not a big fan of. So I don't think faking it is a good idea. I think the tricky thing about fake it till you make it is that oftentimes the reason people say it works is because they're not actually faking it to begin with. They just feel like they're faking it, but they're making it. I think sometimes people like don't realize how much people in your workplace know. Like people know if you're coming to work drunk. Case in point, right? Like when you get your words mixed up on stream, maybe people know you're under the influence. So I think this is where oftentimes it's the reason people fake it till they make it is because of something like imposter syndrome, where they feel like an imposter. So they feel like they're fake. But the truth is they're not an imposter. Like I saw this a lot at places like HBS and HMS, Tufts too, but more often at the higher caliber places where like, you're not that slick. Like if you end up getting into Harvard Business School, you didn't pull a fast one on anyone. Like they have a pretty rigorous process. Like they know what they're getting usually. And so you're not really faking it. That's why it works so well, is because no one's actually faking it. Like everyone's just doing the best they can, which is good enough. They just don't realize that it's good enough because they all feel like imposters. So it's an internal perspective about faking it. Whereas you're actually like, you're doing fine. You've been doing fine. You've always been doing fine. You've always been making it. It's your own cognitive distortion that turns a make it into a fake it. And once that cognitive distortion goes down, once you start to develop confidence in yourself, it's not like you magically learned all these skills like overnight, right? No, like you've been building those skills for chances are years. It's that suddenly your cognitive distortion is what goes away, and that's when you quote unquote make it. Okay, let's see. There's a lot of, damn, okay. We opened some floodgates, chat. Okay. I'm almost always confident, but they want more experience. And in my area, there seem to be no entry-level positions. How do I get into the job market? Ignore what they want and offer what you have. So this is the kind of thing where it's like, nowadays, so as things become more dehumanized, and as like things become more mass market, right? So if you look at dating, for example, so if you look at like online apps, like now that there are 10,000 people in your pool, you can ask for everything under the sun, right? Like you can put, I'm looking for a person who's this. I need someone who's going to take care of my kids, but no kids of your own. I'm unemployed, but you need to make 6 figures. I don't have a car, but you need to be driving a Benz. People just ask for whatever the hell they want. And employers are like not that different sometimes. I mean, not all employers are like that. Just like not all people on dating apps are like that, right? But this is where like you can sort of say, if there aren't entry-level positions, like even entry-level positions will sometimes have, 2 years of experience for an entry-level position. And it's just because they like game the job board. So you just apply for the job and then you just offer what you have. So you can say, hey, I'm like, what is the job actually, forget about the years of experience. Like what do y'all actually need me to do? Because here's what I can do. And if you can get to that phase, then you're going to be in good shape. Because a lot of times they're willing to compromise some on the experience. It depends on who they are and where they are and what's going on and how much you can actually do. Second thing is that you can move a little bit away from online, and this is where networking really matters a lot. So for example, like if you're in the game development space, like go to the game developers conference, right? go to the conference, like meet people, pass out business cards, add people on LinkedIn, ask them, hey, are y'all looking for any positions? I really love the work that you guys do. LinkedIn and stuff like that. Those are all, they can be good. I mean, there's a lot of trash on there, but there's a lot of good stuff too. Okay, so there's another question. So if marketability and self-confidence run inversely generally, how to know when to focus on improving the skill and when to focus on an emotional growth? Great question. So the first thing is they don't necessarily run inverse generally. They run inverse for people who have a preconceived complex of a lack of confidence with an active ahamkar. Okay? So which one should you work on? I'd say you should kind of work on both, but that's where the feedback becomes really important. So if you don't know, are my skills actually good or do I lack confidence? That's why you go ask someone else who has more experience. Say, hey, how is my portfolio? And based on what they say, then you know, okay, is this an internal problem? Do I need to adjust my internal perspectives to match up with the quality of my portfolio? Or do I lack confidence and my portfolio actually sucks? So you use external feedback. Right? So when you don't know what's going on in your own mind, you go to someone else. Okay? Do you need external sources to build confidence? Generally speaking, the answer is yes and no. So if we look at attachment theory, most of our security and confidence in the world actually comes from emotional mirroring from our parents. So, yeah. And at the same time, I find that a lot of confidence can be built purely internally. So in these kinds of situations, I think you should rely on some combination of both. So get some external feedback and see where you actually stand. And then you can start working on it. Even if you get negative feedback, like those are still things that you can fix, right? So negative feedback is good too. How do you build a resume if you have no work experience at all? We may have some content around that coming soon. I'm frustrated at work because it's all about seniority rather than merit and education. Okay. So this is tricky. Sometimes work is really all about seniority. It really can be. The tricky thing is that sometimes people who lack merit will make claims that work performance is based on external factors, like seniority or politics. So I've seen both, where sometimes you're in situations where you are not appropriately appreciated for your merit and how much you bring to the table because there's favoritism in politics at play. Absolutely possible. The tricky thing is that sometimes you are being treated appropriately for your merit and you don't realize it. And your ego is constructing an excuse for your lack of merit. It's saying, oh, it's all about seniority. Now, it's really hard to tell which one it is, but it's devastating because sometimes what happens is I'll see this with people who then move jobs. Oh, in that place, they play politics too. This place plays politics. This place plays politics. Oh my God, like I hate this whole industry. Everyone is playing politics. When it turns out that maybe the problem is actually on your end and you're not as stellar of a worker as you think you are. So it's really, really tricky. It's hard to tell which one it is. That's why you really have to oftentimes work with someone so that they can help you tease apart, okay, how much of this is your contribution? How much of it is work's contribution? Because no workplace is going to be perfectly meritorious, right? So it depends on which half of the spectrum it kind of lies on. The truth is that any workplace is going to be a combination of the quality of your work plus some amount of other factors that have nothing to do with your work. It's tricky. So what if you're already multiple years out of school applying for jobs daily and still nothing? I'd change the way that you apply or network. So if you've tried something 2,000 times and it hasn't worked for you yet, I wouldn't keep doing it. I would really revisit some of the other factors. So try networking or get feedback on maybe you've got some critical problem with your application. I applied to 100 medical schools and didn't get into a single one. What was the problem? It's because I had a 2.5 GPA. Right? So there could be something on your resume that you need to modify. I get some kind of feedback or change your strategy. Emotions versus logic. Should we care about emotions? Absolutely. We better care about them because they care about us. And they're a reality of the human existence. So you really, really need to be in touch with your emotions and have a very good relationship with them. And recognize that emotions are not bad. The other tricky thing, I don't know if y'all have seen this video, but I think we have a video on YouTube about how logic is really run by emotions. Most human beings don't realize this, but your logical thinking is almost never logical. Like our emotional thinking is actually far more powerful than our logical thinking. And most people who think they're logical actually have their logical apparatus being run by an emotional apparatus. You can observe this anytime you see a discussion on politics. Both sides of the picture think they're logically 100% correct, and the other side are complete idiots. And they're both operating from emotions. How would you apply some of this advice for hyper-competitive environments like AAA? What does that mean? Like AAA game studios? I mean, most of this advice comes from comes from my experience of working with people at AAA studios and things like that, at high tiers of performance. So it applies 100%. You don't think, so imposter syndrome is worse the higher up you go. Okay. Oh, wow, we're at time. Okay. So I guess we didn't get to 3 posts, but hopefully that was helpful. Okay, so I'm noticing there's a lot of interest in work-related stuff, so I'm glad we did that post. So like maybe more practical advice on some of these things? Okay, good to know. So remember, so our approach to some of this stuff is going to be I'm sure there are going to be better people who can tell you about, resumes and networking and things like that. But my experience in terms of job success or helping other people get successful at their jobs is to understand that there's an external component and an internal component. So there's your actual skill at your job, and then there's the internal component, which oftentimes, and the two are very closely linked, because if you can consistently get into a flow state, if you can consistently be confident, then that's going to play out in your work, right? And that's what we also find with all the different consulting that we do, whether it's for finance or esports or whatever. When we work with people in esports or physical sports, we can't change your training regimen. But what we can do, even for physical sports, is we can optimize the person who's sitting down at the computer, right? We can optimize the person who's picking the stocks. We can optimize the person who's making the trades. We can't teach you how to make good trades. We can't teach you how to, do technical modeling for financial projections. But we can improve the person who's sitting down to do that work, which is a huge influence on how successful you are. Optimize the person doing the work. I think we have some stuff about imposter syndrome, but we can do it again. We've got to have lectures on imposter syndrome on YouTube. Let me see. And who are you rating, chat? Oh yeah, so we've got a lot of stuff about just yeah, there's a lot of stuff on, just search for here. SFAND? Sure, we can rate SFAND. It's nice seeing SFAND meeting him in person. All right, let's rate SFAND. All right, chat, we're going to be at GDC on Friday. So no stream on Friday, but hopefully we'll be back on Monday and kind of pick up a streaming schedule. Take care.